Well, it's been amazingly low-key, but the most exciting and potentially costly tender in Australia's far north is underway. At stake, a big bite of the food bowl, the vast Ord 2 development zone in the Kimberley, with 400,000 megalitres of water from the giant Argyle Dam. Land in the dry tropics can grow food out of season for Asia and could produce cotton, sugar, you name it actually. It's tense as the Australian government duchesses Chinese interests. One of the final bidders is Australian agricultural company AACo, founded in 1824 and backed by a very Australian consortium of super funds. Well, I spoke to AACo boss David Farley a little earlier. David Farley, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure, Tikki.
Now, you're building an abattoir, but far bigger stakes at the moment is this tender for Ord 2 up in the Kimberley. Just in your view, how important is this decision for the Australian economy?
I think, Tikki, it goes beyond the Australian economy. It goes right down to the Australian security and what we're doing with our land assets in the north of Australia. And in particular, what we're doing with those land assets to meet the demand that will be coming out of Southeast Asia and China between now and 2050.
What do you mean by that? I mean, but presumably you're talking about overseas interests winning this contract. If a Chinese consortium did win this, what do you mean by national security?
There's no need for a Chinese Chinese investor to win this at all. Australia is more than capable of developing this asset itself. We have the skills base, we've got the intellect, and more importantly, we've got the capital base within the country, within our pension and our superannuation plans to take this project on and deliver it to market. The big thing that we need to be cognizant of, and in our recent global history, is that if you disrupt food chains into countries, you soon disrupt social stability and government stability. We've seen that happen in the Middle East with the spike in the food prices. We've got, sitting right to our north, one of the strongest growing economies in the globe today, being Indonesia. You know, this disruption or the banning of the live trade 12 months ago, the consequences are still flowing on. There is still concern there, especially around the security of Australia's reaction in its ability to manage any breaches of the security chains that we've put in place. And it's important that our country, Australia, responds properly and responsibly in getting our assets ready for production. And I don't think we need external investment for these assets at the moment. We're more than capable of meeting the capital demand and the skills demand to put them into production.
What you're saying is, though, that if we lock up something as big as the Kimberley to one overseas player, then that could actually cause something of a trading incident, a diplomatic incident.
We'll need dexterity with our ability to meet the demand on Australia to meet the global calling of food. And therefore, we want to make sure that these assets are treated equitably right from the beginning. And then more importantly, we can arrange the distribution not only to the best market, but to the most important need at the same time. And we're talking of assets now that have got incredible life to them. These aren't like gas fields or coal mines. These will not, if they're managed properly, they'll last for a long, long period of time. And what we've got to make sure now, with this unique and iconic asset in the north, is that we put it in the right hand of stewardship.
Your biggest competition looks to be a Chinese consortium with an association with Bob Hawke, former Labour Prime Minister. Now, we hear from the Finn that the Trade Minister has been chatting away with the Chinese Commerce Minister for about 6 months on opening up the top end. How do you feel this will weigh into their deliberations about the bid?
Well, we've had the Australians reported Bob Hawke's relationship with one of the proponents for the bid. We've read today that our Trade Minister Emerson has been promoting the product in the development itself in China. Obviously, there's an influence there. I'm surprised, though, that we're not being as equally excited and as equally promoting it within the country itself. Again, I'll reiterate, we have the capital, we have the skills and we have the intellect to be able to do this ourselves as Australia.
Now, Craig Emerson has said that, and I quote, there is no proposal for buying up the farm, importing overseas labour and dedicating the production to Chinese consumption. You don't sound as though you believe him.
I can only go on what's being published in the newspapers. I haven't been in close contact with Craig at all on this issue. But any proposal at all would have to run, of course, the national interest. It'd have to be run through FIRB itself. And then ultimately that decision will be made by Wayne Swan, our Treasurer, with the ultimate responsibility. But as that process goes on, I think Australia should take a chance to put itself up into a more current and contemporary position of foreign ownership and foreign operations of agricultural land in Australia. You know, we've got a very outdated document and policy on the management of agricultural land, and more importantly, the transferring of value. There's opportunities that we could lose taxation benefits by not making sure that the transactions are structured properly. Food will play in the next 2 decades a bigger role in stability in society than what energy does and what minerals do.
David Farley, can I ask you finally about your abattoir? It's quite a brave move. It's the first time an Australian abattoir has been built in a long while, and it goes against the whole structure of the industry, which seems in Australia to be geared towards live export.
Well, it's not so much a brave move. It's a move of necessity. The north of Australia is ideal breeding country, and at the moment, our redundant assets in the north, being the aged cows, have to face long journeys south. Sometimes they're on the trucks for 4 days travelling down to the southern abattoirs. The long journey comes at a great expense. And now it just makes sense for us to be able to put a commercial option for our redundant cows and our non-conforming cattle, our heavier cattle that can't make the Indonesian markets, give them an opportunity that we don't burden them down with freight costs. And more importantly, we address the issues of the clean energy policies that are there and try and minimise our exposure to the carbon tax.
David Farley, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Tiggy.